A few of my students came to me and they asked one simple question. It's like, what does his day-to-day as the leader of opposition look like? So can you tell them what exactly do you do in that role?
Yeah, first, thank you very much for coming here. It's an honor for me to come, and lovely to see so many people from back home, so many students. See, opposition, at its heart, is the voice of people. So, if you have parliament, of course, there's a whole sequence of events that go on. But what you're generally thinking about is where and how can I raise issues of the people of India? And you're thinking from a individual perspective, and you're also thinking from a group perspective. You're thinking from a industry perspective, you're thinking from a farmer perspective, and the important thing is that you do it sensitively and after listening and understanding carefully. So very often, you see an issue in the beginning. When you're new to politics, you see an issue and you're like, oh, that's what the issue is. But when you go into a little bit of detail, you realize that there is nuance and complexity. So understanding that nuance and then planning your day according to that, that's how it generally works. Parliament, of course, you go there in the morning and then it's like a war. You go in and then you fight. It's a pleasant war. It's reasonably fun at times. It can get nasty also, but it's a war of ideas, war of words, and we are trying to put our point of view across, and the government is trying to suppress our point of view. So that's how that works. And then there are a lot of people who come and see you. Different types of people, party people, business people, farmers, these type of delegations. So you're constantly listening to what they're saying.
So you just mentioned that you look at issues in a certain way. Now, thinking about your career as a politician, the first time you got elected and this time, has there been a change in the way you look at these issues and your mind thinks differently about how to go about them?
Quite differently. Now, I'm coming to the conclusion that listening is much more important than speaking, right? And listening doesn't just mean that I come there and I listen to you. Listening, that somebody you're talking to me and I'm looking at you and I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm not listening. Listening is a completely different thing. Listening is putting myself in your position. So if you're a farmer, going into the person's life, going into the person's day-to-day life, and then understanding what he's trying to tell you. So listening is fundamental. And then understanding the deeper dynamics. So you then are not just swimming around on the surface, you're raising fundamental issues, and you don't go raising every single issue. You focus clearly and you're like, okay, this is important, I got to raise this. This is something important, I got to fight for this. This is something important, I got to fight. So you choose your battles much more carefully.
I think you hit it on the head, that prioritization.
So, very good definition of political strategy or business strategy. Understand clearly what you don't want to do. So don't sit there doing 50, 100 different things. Understand clearly, जो नहीं करना है, उसको पहले समझो, पहले कर दो. And then उसमें से 3-4 चीजें निकलेंगी, and then that's what you got to focus on.
Well, I think back to the students, that's what we talk about. So this time you're hearing from Mr. Gandhi himself about prioritization. Now, a few things that you mentioned just takes me back a few months. A very unprecedented event happened in terms of the yatra. Personally, for me, a 30-minute walk on the treadmill, you can see 4,000 kilometers and connecting with people in a very different way. How has that changed your perception about people, and how has it helped you connect with people differently?
See, the first question to ask is, why were we walking 4,000 kilometers? Right? It's what created the need for us to do this. And the reason is that all avenues of communication in India were shut. Every single avenue, no matter what we did, it was all shut. We spoke in Parliament, that's not televised. We go to the media, they don't pick up what we say. We even go with documents to the legal system, nothing happens. So all our avenues were shut. And for a long time, we literally couldn't understand how to communicate. And then suddenly we hit upon the idea कि भाई अगर मीडिया आपको लोगों के पास नहीं ले जा रहा, इंस्टीट्यूशनल सिस्टम आपको लोगों के पास नहीं ले जा रहा, तो फिर डायरेक्टली चले जाओ. And then what better way to go directly than to literally go walking across the country? And so that's what we did. And I must tell you, in the beginning itself, I had a little bit of a knee problem. So 3-4 days into it, I was like, "Ye kya kar diya?" I was like, because you get up in the morning, I go running. And so you get up in the morning and you say, "Okay, I'm going to go run 10 kilometers. And they're like, "Okay." And then you get up in the morning and you say, "I got to walk 4,000. It's a completely different paradigm. So there was moments of that, okay, this is quite a big thing. But it went surprisingly easy. It was not difficult at all. And it fundamentally changed the way I think about my work. I would say that it completely changed how I view politics, how I view our people, how I communicate with our people, how I listen to people, and not just me. There were many people involved in the yatra, and all of us. And to me, the most powerful thing that happened organically on its own, we didn't actually do it, it just happened, was that we introduced, certainly for the first time in India, possibly for the first time in many, many countries, the idea of love in politics. And this seems strange, it's a strange thing, because you look at the political discourse in most countries, and you will never find the word love in that discourse. It just doesn't exist anywhere. You'll find hatred, you'll find anger, you'll find unfairness, you'll find corruption, you'll find all these words. But you will never find the word love in the language. And the Bharat Jodo Yatra actually introduced that idea into the Indian political system. And it has amazed me how that idea has worked.
So now when you reflect on the yatra, you think about some of the key moments that happened. Is there any like an aha moment that you want to share with us that you never expected it to happen, but it happened in a positive?
I'll tell you what I realized. And many of you people who are in business school and other public facing spaces, I realized that actually when I was in the yatra, the yatra was speaking on its own. So I realized that I was there, but pretty much everything that was coming out of my mouth was actually coming from the yatra, not for me. Right? So there was thousands of people, they were telling me things, it was going, I was listening to them, they were telling me things, and then their words were coming out of my mouth. So I was not communicating as Rahul. I was communicating as the yatra was communicating. And it took me a little while to figure this out, because first I was like, oh, I'm giving a speech and I have this idea and I'm going to say this. But then suddenly it started to occur to me that every single thing coming out of my mouth is actually things people have said to me. And the most beautiful example of this was this slogan that came, which is "Nafrat ke bazaar mein mohabbat ki dukaan khol rahe ho," right? Now you're clapping, but the slogan did not come. It was not my slogan, right? It was not even a slogan of the organizers. It was a guy who came. I saw him, and he was walking with us, and there was a rope which used to surround us, and he was trying to come in, and he couldn't come in. The police would beat him. So I saw him once there, then I saw him somewhere else. And then I told Alankar, who's standing there, I said, "Dekho, usko le aao." So anyway, Alankar went looking for him. He had disappeared. Then after some time, he came out. He charged through the police, and then he pointed at me like that. And he said, "मैं जानता हूँ आप क्या कर रहे हो. मैं जानता हूँ आप क्या कर रहे हो." So I said, "क्या कर रहा हूँ?" He said, "आप नफरत के बाजार में मोहब्बत की दुकान खोल रहे हो." Right? So then I realized that this is not me. This is the sentiment of the crowd that is speaking. And so that would happen again and again. It would happen sometime. Once it happened when a woman came up to me, held my hand, is walking. And I could feel that something was wrong with the way she was holding my hand. So I said, "Kya hua?" She said, "वो मुझे मार रहा है." I said, "कौन मार रहा है?" He said, "मेरा पति मार रहा है." So I said, "मतलब?" She said, "नहीं, वो अभी मुझे मार रहा था, मैं भाग के आई हूं." So I said, "तो क्या करूं?" So I said, "पुलिस वालों को बताएं?" She said, नहीं, पुलिस वालों को मत बताओ." I said, "क्यों?" She said, "और मारेगा." Now, that's a sentiment of thousands and thousands. I realize that's a sentiment of thousands and thousands of women. That they're being mistreated, they're being treated violently, but they can't say anything. It's hidden. Right? So now when I'm speaking to you right now, I'm saying these things to you, it's not me. It's that girl who's saying it to you. I just transmitted it. So that's the job, in my view, of a politician, is to listen to sentiment, to understand sentiment deeply, and then to give it to other people, right? Like I can see the faces here of the women versus the men. And when I'm saying that, I can see the faces of the women are different. They're reacting completely differently to what I said because they're understanding that. They're like, "Oh yeah, I've been through that before," right? So that's the idea. The idea is not that Rahul Gandhi has some fantastic vision for the country and now he's going to project the vision to the country. The idea is, what is the country saying? What is the country feeling? Right? So in our system, I always used to wonder why this idea of sort of annihilation of the person. You know, if you look at Mahatma Gandhi, you see him in a sense destroying himself. You know, when he's in university, if you see his pictures, they're very nice suit, very nice hair combed. And then slowly you start to see that those things start to fall away. His clothes fall away, his fancy suits fall away, everything falls away. So there's a sort of almost a destruction of the person taking place. And you can see this in many of our leaders. And the reason it's happening is because the person is actually dying and the voice of other people is taking over, right? I don't know, I'll give you an example. Do you know what devta means in the term devta? Do you know what it means? Yes. No. No, it doesn't mean God. The deity. No, it doesn't mean the deity. So devta in India actually means a person whose internal feelings are exactly the same as his external expression. Meaning he's a completely transparent being, right? It does not mean God. So if this person tells me every single thing that he believes or he thinks, and he tells it to me, that's the definition of Devta. Right? It's the idea that you destroy yourself. Right? So to me, that is interesting about our politics. How do you suppress your own ideas? Right? How do you suppress your own fear, or how do you suppress your own greed, or how do you suppress your own ambition and absorb other people's fear, other people's ambition?
I think before we go to the next question, this needs a big, big round of applause. So we just
If you look at our big leaders, and historically, and you can see extreme. So you can see a Buddha who's extreme. You can see Bhagwan Ram, same thing. You can see Mahatma Gandhi. The basic idea is the destruction of the identity. The basic idea is the destruction. The basic idea is the destruction of the self, right? And listening to what others are saying. So to me, that's Indian politics. That's the heart of Indian politics, and that's what an Indian leader is. That's how an Indian leader is different than, say, an American leader. An American leader will say to you, listen, we got to go there. I'm going to take you there. Promised land, let's go. Indian leader attacks himself. Gandhi essentially attacked himself. Totally different concept. In some ways, Bharat Jodo Yatra was an attack on myself. 4,000 kilometer chalna hai, risk hai, goli lag sakti hai, chodo. Let's see what happens. So then that generates a completely different way of thinking and a completely different relationship with people. You know? Idea of Shiva, basically. When they say Shiva is the destroyer, what is he destroying? Himself. That's the idea. Right? He's destroying his ego, he's destroying his structure, he's destroying his beliefs. So Indian political thought, Indian political action is all going inwards. But I mean, I think we might be getting too philosophical. So a good scientist is also that.
I agree.
Or a good engineer is that. Good yogi is that. In fact, if you're good at pretty much anything, you are destroying yourself in some way.
I need a pause for that. One of the important threads in this fabric that we talk about is the youth, and they have a very strong role to play. And especially when you look at US and India, and I see all the students that come in, one of the greatest joys for us here is to work with our students. They just energize us beyond limits. More than 300,000 of them are in the US. About 4,000 of them from India are here at UTD. Where do you see them playing a role in the large scheme of things that India is poised towards? These ambassadors who are sitting here, and of course there are some who have come before and are doing great things here in the US.
In one way, there you are a bridge between the rest of the world and India. So you have ideas and values that you bring to the United States. And often often those ideas and values might not be understood so easily in the United States, right? There's a different cultural ethos, different cultural system here. But your ideas are as valuable as anybody else's. In the same way, they also have a culture, an ethos here. Today I met some young guys just before I came here who came to the United States, not students, but people who, driving trucks and stuff like that. And they were saying to me, look, I said, what do you like about the United States? And they said that what we love about the United States is the idea of equality. That a truck driver in the United States gets respect. And as a truck driver in India, there's no way I could get respect, right? Equality is a very powerful idea. And it's an idea that can help India in huge ways. So if you take back the idea of equality, take back the idea of fairness, that's a very powerful thing. So I think you should see yourself as a bridge. And the other thing is, what I've noticed in my life is that individuals can do huge things. And often it's individuals who you don't expect are going to do big things that do it. So system will say to you, university might say to you, these are the best students. And you'll find that actually the guy who's going to make change is sitting somewhere else in the back. And the university has a way of, making that person feel uncomfortable and said, you're not doing well, your grades are not, you're not getting a 4.0. And then suddenly you find the guy who's not doing so well has done much better in life because he's into the habit of questioning things, asking himself, why is it like this and not like that? And sometimes institutions don't react well to that. If they see you always asking questions, they might say, yeah, disturb kar raha hai isko, chup karo, piche bhejo. So that idea of questioning, that idea of resistance, that idea of being a little disruptive, disturbing a little bit, this is a very powerful idea. I use it in my work also. The idea of creating a disturbance. The Bharat Jodo Yatra was a disturbance. Politics is going on like this, let's disturb it. We don't like the way it's going on. We want to do it like this. So I think that's powerful. If you understand the culture you're operating in, understand your culture, and then have this sense of, how can I do something to bridge it? How can I do something to disturb it? It's powerful.
Talking about the same youth, I think the life of anybody who's young and is in some, like the 20s, the life is like a soap opera. Every day there is a new challenge. There is something that is
the life of somebody who's in his 50s, 60s, 70s. The soap opera continues. It's not that the soap opera stops at 30. Yeah? Let me tell you. In fact, in many ways, the soap opera becomes much more dramatic later. Multiple soap operas start up.
But so they have concerns. They have concerns about doing well in life. They're starting off maybe a professional career. They have questions about whether they'll do well or not. Employment also happens to be a key area and I feel across the world right now, the youth is kind of rippling through that, a phase where there are questions about where they will land professionally from an employment perspective. So when we connect any sentence which has the word youth and employment in the same sentence, it's a cause of worry at a lot of places at a lot of different levels. What do you have to say about employment and our youth?
See, first of all, let's be clear. Not everywhere on the planet has an employment problem. Okay? The West has an employment problem. India has an employment problem. But there are many countries in the world that don't really have an employment problem. China certainly doesn't have an employment problem. Vietnam doesn't have an employment problem. So there are places on the planet that are not struggling with unemployment. There's a reason. If you look at the United States in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, they were the center of global production. Anything that was made, cars, washing machines, TVs, all made in the United States. production moved from the United States, it went to Korea, it went to Japan, eventually it went to China. And if you look today, China is dominating global production. You go to India, you look at the phones, you look at the furniture, you look at clothes, you'll see on the back, made in China. That's a fact, right? So what has happened? The West, America, Europe, India have given up on the idea of production and they've handed it to China. The act of production creates jobs. What we do, what the Americans do, what the West does, is we organize consumption. Okay? Uber is organizing consumption. Okay? Foxconn is organizing production. Mahindra organizes production. Bajaj organizes production. These are the guys who create the jobs. And that is the problem. You're never going to employ India using IT, using consumption. It's not going to happen. So India has to think about the act of production and organizing production. And India has to, it's not acceptable that India simply says, okay, manufacturing, what you call manufacturing or production is going to be the preserve of the Chinese, it's going to be the preserve of the Vietnamese, it's going to be the preserve of the Bangladeshis, right? Bangladesh completely outcompetes us in textiles. Regardless of the problems they're facing right now, they wiped us off. They wiped us clean in textiles, right? So we have to reimagine how to produce in a democratic environment. Until we do that, we will face high levels of unemployment. And frankly, it's not sustainable. So you're going to see that if we carry on down this path of forgetting about manufacturing, you're going to see massive social problems coming in India and in the United States and in Europe, right? The polarization of our politics is because of this.
We're getting ready to ask a few questions from the audience. Can we have the runners with the mics? But while we do that, Rahulji, in this, what you just spoke about, that even if people are fine with the way their jobs are and they're secured, we have a new challenge in the name of AI. And there's a lot of fears around that AI is going to take jobs away. Do you feel so as well?
Again, see, every time you get a new technology, the argument is made that it's going to take jobs away, right? When computers first came, it's going to take jobs away. When calculators first came, it's going to take jobs away. ATMs came, it's going to take jobs away. Okay, this is a fact. Now, what happens is, it does take jobs away from some people and then transfers them to other people, right? So I'm not of the view that jobs will vanish, but different type of jobs will be created and different types of systems will benefit more or less, right? I think, for example, the IT industry in India is going to have a real big, serious problem because of AI. But I don't really think a Bajaj making scooters is going to have such a big problem, right? So it's going to hit different people differently. It's going to take away some jobs. It's going to add some jobs. And if you're positioned properly, it's an opportunity. And if you're positioned badly, you're in trouble. I mean, I remember Mr. Vajpayee gave a speech that Indians don't need computers, right? And somebody else gave a speech that Indians don't need English. Computers created millions of jobs in India. It's a fact. So it depends. It depends how flexible you are and how well you're looking at the future.
Thank you so much. We do have some folks here who would like to ask a few questions. So Can we get a mic here, please? Mr. Shroff, right here. Oh, okay.
First, let me add two questions. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity.
Let's keep it to one question, please.
Yeah.
Yes, one question.
So India has a young population. So what are your plans to modernize the education system and bridge the gap between the education system and employability? That is the first question.
Let's keep it to
sure.
one, please. Thank you. Nimish.
Should I just answer this one, or you want to get? Okay.
I'll try.
I think many people say that India has a skills problem. I don't think India has a skills problem. I think India has a skill respect problem. So India doesn't respect people who have skills. But I don't think there's any limit on the skills that are already available in India. Okay. Second, our education system doesn't connect with the business system. So you have a business system that is operating on its own, and you have a sort of ivory tower education system. And the education system in no way connects deeply with the skill structure of India. So I think bridging that gap, linking those two systems of skill and the education system, vocational training, I think is fundamental. I think currently huge problem in the education system is the ideological capture. So, feeding ideology through the education system. Most of our vice chancellors today are placed by the RSS. It's an organization that has a very particular perspective on life, on history, on the future. That's really damaging. Having one organization that is placing all its people in our education system, I think that's damaging. So ensuring that people who run our education system are independent, are not, ideological, or are not committed to sort of a particular way of thinking, I think is important.
Thank you. Dr. Gupta.
Rahulji, I have a question. What's your vision of creating growth in the industry, manufacturing?
No, I don't see. Again, what I think is not as important as what the large mass of Indian people think, right? One problem that you simply cannot solve if you continue on the direction we're on is giving our blue-collar workers jobs. You simply, if you carry on this road, you simply cannot do that, right? The only way you're going to give our large mass of people jobs is if you start producing things, if you start manufacturing. And the foundation of manufacturing, you don't just start manufacturing cell phones, right? It is a sequence, right? So you have to go up the value chain if you want to manufacture. A lot of people say, oh no, you can manufacture cell phones directly. Well, cell phones are not being manufactured in India. Cell phones are being assembled in India. It's a different thing. Meaning components are coming from China and those components are being assembled in India, right? The reason China can develop those components is because they have a huge infrastructure that has manufactured many different things, many different types of things before. So you cannot get away from that basic stuff. And I think you have to have a vision for production. For example, our GST is designed against production. It rewards consumption, it punishes production. States that produce are harmed, right? Large monopolies huge monopolies harm production, right? They influence the policy regime so that players cannot produce. So these are some of the things that you would have to look at if you want India to start producing. I'm convinced India can produce with no problem. I'm convinced that India can take on China if you start aligning the country for production and if you start respecting skills. I'm absolutely convinced of it. And states like Tamil Nadu have already shown it. Like it's not that Indian states have not done it. Pune has shown it, Maharashtra has shown it, Tamil Nadu has shown it, Karnataka to an extent has shown it, right? So it is being done, but it's not being done at the scale and with the coordination that it needs to be done. I'll give you an example. You take any district in India, you will find that there is a historical network that produces there. You go to Moradabad, you will find brass, right? You go to Mirzapur, you will find carpets. You go to Bellary, you will find jeans. So each district has a traditional network of production. Now, how much support are those people getting? You want to create a brass industry, create it in Moradabad. Open the banks to them, infuse technology, support them, and I guarantee you, they will take on China, right? And you can do it in every district. You support the Bellary jeans industry. You put in a couple 100 crores into that thing. You open the doors of banks to them. I guarantee you they'll get to work, right? But currently, I mean, a simple statistic: 16 lakh crore rupees of bank loans have been forgiven to 25 people. 25 people, right? Do you realize how many industries you could set up with that? And they've just been forgiven, right? When we forgive farm loans and we say, okay, we're going to forgive 70,000 crores for all India's farmers, the press suddenly jumps up and down. And 16 lakh crores have been forgiven without a word. And whose money is it? It's taxpayers' money. Where's it come from? It's come from your pockets. So why should 20 people get this massive free gift? Why should one person, suddenly have all the ports, all the airports, all the defense contracts? What is happening when you do that? You're taking away money from people. Instead of having one business that runs all the airports in the country and one business that runs all the ports, you could have 10, 15, 20, right? So it's all destruction of economic activity.
Thank you. We can take something on this side. Can we have the mic? Can we please have the mic here? Rakshit, go ahead.
Hello, Rahulji. My name is Rakshit. First of all, thank you so much for being here. We feel so privileged. So my question is, how do you think we as students and youth contribute to and get involved in public service and the development of our country?
Come and work with us. We can make it for you. But realize that it's not a neither is it easy, and it's not fun all the time. It can be unpleasant, it can be hard, but it's got its, you do get gratification from it, but it's not easy. And if any of you are interested in it, we run internships and we put people into our system and train people.
Thank you. We had a question here, Mr. Shah.
Rahulji, first of all, thank you for coming here and gracing UTD with your presence. I'm a faculty and I also represent a lot of students. So I'd like to ask, for everything we look at it and say, there is always something you can even do better for something that you haven't done successfully. So looking back, Bharat Jodo Yatra was so successful. Couple of things what you could have done differently if you did it now.
No, look, every single thing that you do, I mean, I'm sure if we sit down and say, okay, Bharat Jodo Yatra, we could have done it better, right? There's nothing that you do that you couldn't have done better or you can't do better. And that's just how life works. And these are choices. So I don't think I've ever done anything perfect in my life. And I don't think I will ever do anything perfect in my life. But it's a learning experience, right? So you do it again, then it works. Yeah.
Thank you. Take another question.
One thing that I didn't think was important because of something my father said to me once, which is strange, which turns out is quite important, which is that once my father told me, look, if you work properly, you don't need to tell anybody about it. Work speaks for itself. But it's actually not true. It's a strange thing. It's not true. You've got to communicate it. And the one thing I have fundamentally changed is that earlier I would do something and I wouldn't communicate it. And now I do something and I communicate it. It's not actually my nature. My nature is actually just to do it and not communicate it. But I think it is important that you communicate. Yeah.
All right. Yes, let's go there. Can we have the mic? My eyes feel like a lot of machine right now. I'm trying to pick up which one I see. Where is the mic? Jitesh? Go ahead.
Thank you, Rahulji. So as my friend Rakshit was saying, like public into service or public into politics, which one you prefer? Like one Indian youth should be more into service or like complete into politics?
Look, don't have a rigid idea of what political action is. And in the same way, don't have a rigid idea of what service is. Those two can overlap, right? Politics is much broader than fighting elections or giving speeches, right? Politics is about influencing how people think, and you can be very political and not be directly involved in the political system, right? Or you can be deeply involved in the political system and not be doing politics at all. So I don't think you should think that those are two different avenues. You should do what you like. And in what you like, you can do politics without a problem.
I think we have time for another couple of questions, right? So, Dr. Mehrotra, can we have the mic here, please? I'll get it. Okay.
First off, thanks a lot for being here. It's a rare opportunity and we're truly grateful. To me at least, and I could be wrong here, it almost seems like there are two Indias. One that is reaping the benefits of the growth that we see, and then one that's being kind of bypassed. There's still unacceptably high number of people living in abject poverty who don't even have access to the very basic of quality education. What vision do you have to ensure that this India that's kind of been cut off at least gets some benefits, and that it's a little more equitable, the benefits of India's economic growth?
There are clearly two Indias, and very small percentage of people benefit from India. The vast majority of people don't benefit from it. And if anybody talks about building a country, talks about progress, You simply cannot ignore this fact, right? If you look at our institutions, our businesses, our legal system, anywhere, you will find that it's captured by a very, very small percentage of people. Now, one of the things that I keep saying is that in the 21st century, you need data and you need to understand the extent of this capture. I think when people actually understand the extent of this capture, they will be shocked, right? And so, for example, the idea of a caste census is a way of shining the light on this capture, right? It amazes me when people say, oh, there shouldn't be a caste census. It's like saying his leg is broken and there shouldn't be an X-ray. Why not, right? What's the problem? What's the problem with an X-ray? Second thing is the issue of skill, right? You've heard of the Eklavya story? You've heard of the Eklavya story? If you want to pin down what is happening in India, it is millions and millions of Eklavya stories every single day. The people with skill, their thumbs are being cut off. They're not being allowed to operate. They're not being allowed to thrive. And it's happening across the board. So respect for skills, supporting skills financially through technology, that's how you'll unleash India's power. You're not going to unleash India's power by empowering 1%, 2% of India. And, it's not interesting for me. So I'm very passionate about this. I'll give you an example. Sometime back when we were in government, we were talking about skill development. And the gentleman who was running, he was appointed by Manmohan Singh Ji for skill development. He came to see me. And we were having a conversation. And he was explaining to me how he was going to build ITIs. And he was going to put trainers inside ITIs. For plumbing, for hair cutting, for carpentry, for stuff like that. And I was listening to him. And I asked him a question. And what I said was, look, you're building these ITIs. And I gave him an example. I said, let's say you want to train 1 million barbers. Now, in your model, what you're going to do is you're going to have these ITIs, 1,000 of them across the country, and you'll train these barbers. But that's not where the barbers' skills lie. That ITI is not where the barbers' skills are. The barbers' skills are with the barbers. So I said to him, why don't you do this? Why don't you set up certification centers? And then go to every single barber in India and say, listen, this is what we'd like you to train. For every guy you send to our certification center, we'll give you X amount of rupees. So let's say you have, 1 million barbers in India. You go to 1 million barbers and you say, listen, you guys have the skills. We want to train barbers. And now start training barbers. And for every guy you train, send him to the certification center. And the moment we find that he's certified and he has been sent by you, we pay you. How long will it take you to 1 million barbers? 2 months? 3 months? Right? He just looked at me as if I was crazy. Right? Because for him, the skill isn't there. The skill isn't the ITI. But actually the skill is with the barbers, with the plumbers, with the carpenters. Those guys have the skill. That's the skill network. So why are you not using it to train? Just recently I was driving past Sultanpur and I walked up to this shoemaker. It was amazing because the guy says to me, I said, what's your biggest problem? He says, I've been working here for 40 years and nobody has ever respected me. So he says to me, the only man who has ever respected me is my father. Right? So I was thinking about this. And then he says to me, there was this scheme. And they said that, they've got this scheme for shoemakers. It was in Lucknow somewhere. So he says, so I, went to Lucknow. And I said, so what did they do? They said, well, they said they're going to teach me how to make shoes. He says, but I've been making shoes for 40 years. And I could teach those people how to make shoes. Right? So it's a fundamental disconnect with where the skills are. There's no shortage of skills in India. There's shortage of respect of skills in India. So you want to find the best carpenters in the world, they're sitting in India. But nobody respects their skill. Nobody actually tells them, we believe in you and we want you to build something. Right? So you can't build industry without respecting skill.
Thank you. Maybe we are in time for one last question. So the lady here in the stripes, can we mic to her? And I request our ISA officers to come on this side, please, on the stage, while we do that. Go ahead.
So as we all know, the female labor participation in India is quite abysmally low, and no country can ever progress or become developed with only 50% of their population working. So what would Mr. Gandhi's plan be for increasing our labor participation of women?
It's not just labor participation. It starts with a bad attitude that Indian males have towards women. And I don't mean every single Indian male, but a large number of Indian males' attitudes towards women is just, it's ridiculous, right? So it starts there. And it's a particular way of thinking about women. And we see it in the political system, we see it in the business system, we see it everywhere. So I'm very big, number one, on political participation of women. Reservation bill to start with, ensuring that women get into business, ensuring that women are supported financially if they want to open their business, and then making sure that it is made easier for women to participate, right? Women have their own particular issues that you need to take care of before they can start to participate. So I think the first thing is of thinking of women the same way you think of men, right? That they can do anything men can do, if not better, and that they are equal and better in many, many things. Yeah. Also, by the way, this is part of the ideological fight between the BJP and us, right? The BJP and the RSS believe that women should be restricted to a particular role. They should stay at home. They should cook the food. They should not talk too much, right? And we believe that women should be allowed to aspire to whatever they want to do.
Well, Mr. Gandhi, if I just say that it was great having you on campus, that is a big, big understatement. But can we give him a round of applause? All right, at this point, folks, let's be in our places. Mr. Gandhi, once he exits the room, we can all, in an orderly fashion leave. But I would like a few of our ISA officers here, who are the organizers for the event, to just present a token to Mr. Gandhi here.